Hello World History students. I'd like to work with you on Chapter 14, Section 2, Turbulence in Africa. So I have these questions up here that are right from the book. The top question is the big picture question for all of Chapter 14, Section 2, and the 4 questions underneath are questions that will help you to build an answer for the question at the top. And then I have a few questions I've prepared that I'm just going to ask you to help build answers to the 4 questions below the main question. So it seems like there's a lot going on here, but really we're just kind of building a pyramid of information so we can get to that top answer. So feel free to pause after every question and read in the book to find the answer and add that to your notes. Have your learning targets out. The first question, the big picture question of all of Chapter 14, Section 2 is, what effects did exploration have on Africa? The next 4 questions are going to yield answers that build your answer to that first question. So the first question, as you start reading, why did Portuguese build mainly on the coast, can be supported by answering the next few questions. Pause after each one and again look for the answers in your text. So as you're reading, as you begin, answer this question. What do we already know about Portuguese exploration in Africa? What was the Portuguese strategy? How did the Portuguese behave towards the existing Africans? What effect did the Portuguese have on Africa in the long run? Okay, that's the end of the first red subtitled section in Chapter 14, Section 2. Let's move on to the second one. The big question for this next subsection is, how did African slave trade expand? So as you're reading, again, all of these are in order. As you're reading, answer these questions to help answer the bigger questions. So how did African slave trade expand? Start with this. Was slave trade a new thing in Africa? What effect did Europeans have on slave trade? Where did Europeans trade goods for slaves? Who tried to resist slave trade, and how? Let's move on to the third subsection of Chapter 14, Section 2. The big question here is, what caused some African states to grow? To answer that question, I have 3 sub-questions for that question. What was one positive and one negative effect of slave trade on African states? How did Osei Tutu unify and govern the Asante Kingdom in Africa? How did the Oyo Empire arise? And in the last subsection, here's the big question. How did the European presence in Africa expand? And you can answer that by answering these 2 smaller questions. Number 1, who followed the Portuguese example in Africa? Number 2, where and how did different European groups settle in Africa? And that's it. Now let's go back to the first question, the big question for the whole section. And now that you've got the pieces and the notes and everything kind of put together, you've taken time to find the answers for yourselves at your own pace. Can you answer the question, what effects did European exploration have on the people of Africa? Okay, thank you. We'll see you in Chapter 14, Section 3.